What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 303. We are recording Sunday night because someone here is going on vacation starting Monday, so we can't record on our normal Tuesday afternoon. That someone is me. My wife, and my dogs are going to an Airbnb right outside of Syracuse for a few days, so a little R&R, but we're recording a little bit earlier, right after the Bills game. It's about 7:30, but Phil, a little bit stressful, but I think that's how the Bills season is going to go from the rest of the season. It's going to be a long, stressful season.
Yeah, are we getting right into it?
Yeah, I mean, I did look at a house. It sounds promising. Going to be moving back to the more inner circle of the friend group. I'm currently on the outskirts of if you're looking at a giant circle and you're like pinpointing where everybody lives, I'm at like the northmost top of the circle. And if we do decide to get this house and we're lucky enough to have a bid accepted, and there's still a lot of stuff to be worked out, but I'll be going from here kind of down towards the middle, which will be nice because everything will be a bit closer. I won't have to drive like 20 minutes to get to people's houses, and people won't have to drive 20 minutes to get to my house. So it is promising. There's a ways to go, but things are looking up. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, and as far as the Bills go, like you said, it was really ugly. I don't know. It was another one of those games. I was less confident than I normally am when they start bad against a not-so-great team where you're like, all right, they'll come back at some point. It's not a huge deal. We did that a lot. Kind of had the feeling sometimes last year where you just kind of trusted the team that even if they started bad all the way through like 4 quarters and they were down by a touchdown, you're like, whatever, they're the better team. They'll get it figured out, and most times they did. They did that in this game as well. I had a little less confidence, but I really wasn't concerned. I don't know. I wasn't concerned they were going to lose. Like, I never had that feeling of they're out of it. Like when they were down, what was it, 17-3 really early on. It was scary for sure, and it wasn't looking great, but I never really just had that gut feeling of, oh my gosh, they're going to throw this one away. They're going to lose it. Just kind of thought they would get it together and come out with the win, and they did, but it was not pretty against a not great team. So they got it together, and the win is the most important thing, especially week 1. Like, they have plenty of time to fix a lot of things that went wrong in this game, and I'm sure they'll hopefully get a lot fixed by next week, but the win was by far the most important part.
Yeah, so we'll get over the intro here so we can start diving into the game. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky, Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube. You can see our wonderful faces there. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can also check out our store on our link tree on all our social media sites, or at the top of that website that I just listed. By hitting that shop tab, you can represent the BSC on the go and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. The first one will be the Bills versus the Cardinals that we've been teasing. Buffalo comes out with the victory 34-28. They made it a lot more interesting than it probably should have been off the bat. Phil already mentioned it. They were down 17-3 at one point. Buffalo stormed back. They did the double dip like you always want them to do, score right at the end of the first half and get the ball first in the second half, go right down there and score. Josh Allen, once again, just he had one glaring issue right off the bat with the fumble, but that is the type of play that you're going to get with Josh Allen. Every once in a while, with his scrambling ability, somebody's going to beat their block, which, again, he was standing in the pocket too long. Curtis Samuel came wide open, but I'm not going to criticize him for all this. He knows the error that he did. Kind of set the team back a little bit, but those are the type of things that come with the Josh Allen experience where, hey, if he's able to get to the outside, you never know what's going to happen there. But, he was unstoppable. I think the offense, you kind of got a little bit of a taste what it's going to be like, where there's not one shining guy. There's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys with at least one reception, 10 guys with at least one target. No guy was really over 51 yards. So they were spreading the ball around like you were expecting. I think it's going to take a bit more time to fine tune this. I don't think you want ever another game where Dalton Kincaid gets one reception on 2 targets. I think he needs to be much more involved in this game. But without knowing exactly what the coverage was the Cardinals blanket covering him and kind of take Dalton Kincaid out of the game and saying, hey, somebody else beat us? But I thought the offense did what they needed to do and did what they're probably going to have to do a lot of this season, is score a bunch of points and hopefully you get some defense to stop. But I mean, Cardinals are probably going to be a top 10, top 15 offensive unit this year. Their defense is just going to stink. That's why I was a little bit shocked to see how Buffalo was struggling in the beginning of the game, just not having any real momentum with the offense. They didn't have much time, and that a lot of it was because the defense. Yes, Mike Evans scored again. Sorry, fantasy's also going on too, and I'm trying to lead a comeback here, but. Yeah, that was the second one he scored there. But yeah, I think the offense is definitely going to need to pick it up. And again, I'm not overreacting. I wasn't one of those ones that was on Twitter all the time in this game, just going, "Oh, this is the Bills." The whole first quarter and a half of football. You go on Twitter and you think the world's coming to an end because of everybody complaining. It's just like, it's the first game of the year. Everybody's struggling. I think there was 3 or 4 games in the first slate of games where the halftime came and a team had a 0 spot. So they're going to work out some kinks. The defense is a little bit concerning, but you also have to remember Taron Johnson went out in the first drive, man. So there's a lot to digest in this game, but with it being just game 1, I'm going to take a little bit of an Aaron Rodgers here. Just go, relax, guys. Just game 1, long season ahead. You got the job done. At the end of the year, they're not going to ask how you did it. They're going to ask how many.
Yeah, I mean, if you look throughout the league, a lot of games were pretty rough. And if you look specifically to Cincinnati, who lost to New England, who had a win total of 4 headed into the season, you don't want to start like that in a very complicated AFC. You want to make sure you get all your W's, and even the Dolphins had to kick a game-winning field goal at the last second in order to win their game. So, I mean, yeah, it didn't look pretty, but I mean, if you take away, I know it's easy to kind of say like this stuff afterwards, but if you take away that special teams kickoff return for a touchdown, this game looks much better. You're looking at 34-21. That would be a game we can all accept. And you're like, all right, that's fine. That's like a really good score for your first game with this kind of team, with a lot of defensive turnover, a lot of offensive turnover. So with all of that, if you saw the score and looked 34-21, I think you're feeling a little bit more comfortable about everything that happened. And if you look at the defense, yes, there were broken plays here and there, but for the most part, they did a good job containing the pretty explosive Arizona offense that will continue to gain steam as the season goes on, but it was a good time to catch them in week 1. But I mean, Murray only had 162. That's not that much. Yes, he ran for 57 yards, but 30 of that was on one play. So you take that out, it's a lot less. Even Connor, again, he had 16 for 50. That's really not that bad. And 20 of that was in one play. So he had 15 for 30. Like, that's really good overall. I mean, yes, there were mistakes the defense made. Yes, there were plays that you want them to do a little bit better. But for the most part, I thought they did a good job. Dorian Williams, I thought, looked good. He looks a little slower than I think you would like, but his tackling was pretty solid, and he was all over the field making a lot of plays. So for a guy that the Bills need to step into that role and step up, I thought he had a pretty good game. And then on the offensive side, Shakir is just a monster of a wide receiver. Like, the amount of times we've seen him just bounce off hits and keep going, and just like, for how big he's not a big guy. He's pretty small, and for his size, for him to be able to just absorb a hit completely and then run 10 more yards, and then the touchdown, just run through 2-3 tackles and leap into the end zone, or like reach into the end zone. Like, his ability to take a hit and keep going, or just constantly drag guys with him for his size, is really impressive. You saw it again in playoffs last year when he had that ridiculous play where he just broke free and ran all the way in, and he's doing it again this year. I think the Bills might key in on him a little bit more often moving forward, just because of his run after the catch ability. But I do agree with what you said about the offense. I think it's going to be a lot of this. Hopefully Kincaid does get more involved, but it's going to be a lot of, again, that comparison to Kansas City's offense, where they just spread it around completely. You have no idea who's going to get the ball on any given play. I think that's what the Bills are going for. They don't want you to be able to key in on somebody. They want you to focus on every single player and every single play, because that will cause a lot of extra mismatches. And Allen is by far good enough to figure out where those mismatches are, call his plays, and get the plays to work. I mean, the Hollins touchdown was a audible at the line that he called out, saw something, switched it, and boom, you have a touchdown to a guy who scored, 4 in his career and 0 last year. I mean, for him to be able to get a guy like that into the end zone in his first game, I think the offense, it looked promising. Yes, again, there were issues they need to work out, but for game one, I know Arizona has a terrible defense, but for game one, it looked promising, and it looks like what they're going to be able to do looks positive.
Yeah, I'll start with the offense as well. James Cook, he cooked 19 for 71, 3 for 22. And when I looked at it, the 19 for 71 couldn't have stood out because I thought he was rushing. He looked quick, and he was hitting those gaps.
Yeah, his explosion,
right.
He just stutters, and then all of a sudden he's 5 yards down the field, and you have no idea how he got there.
Yeah, his patience in finding those blocks to run behind was great. Keon looked really solid. I think he looked a lot better than I was anticipating him looking. Yeah, one catch down the sidelines is vintage. What you're expecting from Keon Coleman is he's going to box the guys out and get those balls. He's never going to beat anybody down the field. He's going to be. It's going to be tough sometimes to get off the line. And it will be interesting to see how he looks against some better defenses because Cardinals are not that great. But in the first game, I think he looked way better than I was anticipating him looking. We already kind of hit the nail on the head. The offense is all spread out. It looked promising. I think the right word, like you said, it looked promising, and they got a ways to go. I think the offensive line, way too many penalties. The 2 tackles need to figure it out. I think. Why am I blanking on the guard's name right now? Second round pick last year. Phil,
Torrance?
Help me out here. Torrance, yes. I think you said that. Yeah, I think
I did.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
I whispered it because I didn't want to be wrong.
Yeah, Torrance. Yeah, he had the one penalty was just bad. He had that guy's face mask for a good 5-10 seconds. But I think once the offense figures it out. The offensive line, I should say. There are some moving pieces there with Mitch Morris not there and Connor McGovern sliding over. I didn't see any issues with the snaps, so I think that was a good thing. But then you flip to the defense. I thought DeMar Hamlin being able to start there. Now, it's less about his plays, but more about just what he was able to overcome. About, last year working his way back and playing in reserve role and then starting the season in the starting lineup. Before that whole incident with the cardiac arrest, you and I were talking him up. We thought he was a really solid safety back there.
Yeah,
so
he was on the rise.
I'm looking to see him continue to develop back there. Gregory Rousseau, man, holy cow, what an absolute star-stud of a game. 3 sacks and a strip sack, unbelievable performances. And he's one of those players that stepped up when you needed to stop. And I think that's a good thing about this defense is, yes, they were a bend but don't break one, but they got those big-time stops. Cam Lewis stepping in for a hurt Taron Johnson, who hopefully he's back sooner than later because he's one of the best nickel corners in the entire league. But Cam Lewis stepped up great. I thought Ingram stepped up great. He had the big pass defense on that last play. And then the one negative, I need to see more from Daquan Jones. He had one big play, but that was it. I need to see more from Ed Oliver. I need to see more from Epinesa. I need to see more from those 3-time starters. Even Von Miller had a good pressure back there as well that I think he was one of the reasons.
I thought he played a decent game.
Yeah, I think he was one of the reasons that Gregory Rousseau got, I think, his second sack. And then the last one, Tyler Bass. He didn't do a ton, but he nailed those 2 kicks when needed to. Into the wind. I know one of them was into the wind. I can't remember if the other one was into the wind. But even if they were under 40 yards, building up that confidence that he needs is a good starting point. 2 for 2. He's kicking it and making it when it matters. I will hats off. 2 for 2 on the season so far. He's another guy to keep an eye on because he didn't really hit a long one. And the one kick was pretty good pressure to put him up by 6 points rather than 3. But it's a good start for a guy like Tyler Bass who's building up his confidence again.
Especially with the wind, way it was going. It was brutal. I think they said gusts up to 20 miles an hour, and we know all about the Buffalo wind, but for him to be able to nail kicks in that wind is fantastic. Even 4 for 4 and extra points. It's even the little things. I mean, that's still 4 points, and to be able to go 6 for 6 on the day for his confidence, that's really big. I think the kickoff is probably going to hurt his confidence a smidgen. He had a few negative plays on the kickoff, so we'll see if he can work on that. Again, the wind was terrible, so you can blame it a bit on that, but that needs to get a little bit better. I mean, I know it's not all on him for sure, but allowing a kickoff return for a touchdown. And then didn't he have one that was a penalty as well?
The one that went out of bounds. Yeah, that one he should have kicked right down the middle. But I will say, in his defense, is that Matt Smiley telling him to kick it to the sidelines? Because if that's the case, that's a mistake. You got to kick it up the middle there, especially if it's a squib kick. But maybe it was his fault. Like, I'm reserving the right to find out, because we might never know if it was Matt Smiley's decision to kick it down the sidelines.
We still don't know about 13 seconds, so we're not going to know about this.
We'll never know. I hate that. Somebody's got to write a book about that.
But for his first game in a long time looking decent, I thought Von Miller actually looked decent. Like, he wasn't out there and we thought, oh my gosh, get this guy off the field. He looks just terrible. Like, he actually looked like he was a little bit like that play that he got the sack on. He just bull rushed the guy right over, ran him all the way into Kyler Murray, and then was able to get Kyler Murray to trip because he pushed his offensive lineman all the way into him, and then obviously touched him. But that play was all him. It was just a straight on, I beat you, I'm better than you kind of play. And to see that explosion from him is all you look like. If he's a rotational piece now, like we were kind of saying, where he's no longer the focus, but he's a depth piece on this team. If he can come in, be healthy, and not play a ton of snaps, but come in every once in a while and do that, that's all you need. Like, that's all you're looking for from him at this point in his career, is to come in and be that rotational difference maker, where if he's on the field, he can make that kind of play. And that was a huge play at that point in the game. So I think even just seeing that little bit of explosion from him in this game is huge for the defense moving forward.
So, Phil, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to this game. I'm pretty much tapped out on this one. There's a lot more we can get into with certain players and whatnot, but I think after game one, I'm not going to hit anybody too hard. I'm not going to give too much praise to anybody. They went in, they scored 34 points, they got the job done. There's ways to improve on both sides of the ball, and including special teams as well, with a lot of teams trying to figure out the kickoff maneuvering, like you mentioned. But the offense has some promise. The defense made stops when they needed to against a pretty good offense. I think the big next test is come Thursday night in Miami, 8:15. That's the next game they play. Getting one of those division matchups out of the way early against a team like Miami. It'll be interesting to see how, and it being a night game will also help based on what they went through last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much glad you got the win. It was kind of ugly, but you started to see them put some things together. And more than anything, I think this game just continued to prove how great Josh Allen is, and that no matter what is put in front of him, he will put the team on his back and make it work. Because, my goodness, the man just put the team on his back and made it work. Because that was really ugly early, and he just said, hop on, and let's do this.
Hop on, and I'll hop over some people scoring that one touchdown as well. Let's hope
ridiculous.
His hand is okay, though. Like, he must have a very pointy elbow, because he crushed his hand underneath it. It looked bad. It looked bad. But that will end that one. On our next show, we will cover the game that it will be, 5 days old? 5 days old from the Thursday game. It's a long break between that. So we'll cover the next game on the next Wednesday show. We will move forward to the Mad Matty Minute. For those that have not been listening, every Wednesday until we get word on Mad Vince and his plans, I am offering my services to entice him back. And so far, I've been cleaning up after his animals. I've been returning his packages, getting him food, water boy, gardener, charger boy, light guy, insult fan. I've been his spammer Sam, clearance Clarence, birthday Brad, spotter Potter, dry Dave, and moving Marvin. Phil, I'm officially retiring the Mad Matty Minute. Last week was the last offer I'm putting on the table, and this is why. This is a very simple reason. All the signs are pointing towards Matt Vince returning. We'll talk about it in a minute, but Paul Dawson returning, Steve Priolo signing a 3-year deal. We just, like I said, we'll talk about it in a minute, but Bucky returning. The three guys that we were wondering, okay, could this be the year they hang it up? It was less so about Priolo, more so about Paul Dawson and Buchanan. But they've signed no goalies. There's been absolutely no goalie movement. They released Devlin Shanahan. I'm making the official call, and I'm standing pat on my opinion right now. I'm not reserving right to change it because I'm confident this is the case. Mad Vince is returning because all signs are pointing to it, so I'm stopping offering my services. Calling you out, Mad Vince. I know what you're doing. You're just letting all this rake up so you can put this in your contract. I am completely officially wiping the Mad Matty Minute. It's officially retiring. Yes, those services that I already did are still out there, but Mad Matty Minute is officially retiring this offseason. It might be back next year when he becomes a UFA once again. But yeah, for this offseason now, I'm officially retiring it because I fully believe he is coming back. So for one last time, there you go, Mad Vince. I'm retiring the graphic in this segment.
I don't blame you. You're already going to be ridiculously busy trying to keep up with all this. Can you add this as volunteer work to a resume? Like, is this...
I think so. I'm going to. I don't know if it's allowed, but I'm going to.
So you're volunteering a lot. I mean, yes, it's for one person, but it's still a lot of volunteer work. You're not getting paid to do all these things, and it seems like you've given yourself more than a full-time job. So I mean, multiple full-time jobs are mixed in there. So congratulations. Mainly to Matt Vince for having a guy to do all this stuff for him. I mean, that's big. That's big.
Yes, big time. So, like I said, thank you for sticking with me since the beginning of June with the Mad Matty Minute. It's a little sad for it to go away, but I'm a little happy that I'll have a little bit more spare time without offering more services leading all the way to December because I don't know if we'll ever get official word, but I'm officially awarding my services are now done. Like everything out there is just, that's it. So before we dive into some of the Bandits signings, some NLL signings, and the draft that's coming up next Sunday, let's go over our first sponsor of the show, Tap That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room is at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar. What that is, if we haven't told you in a little while, it is a full wall full of 30 consistently rotating taps. You go up with your glass. You can have as little or as much as you want of all of the... PK is doing some YouTube actions down there. You can have as little or as much as you want of all of the 30 rotating taps they have, and it is a great way to sample new beers, find your new favorite, or simply enjoy one of your favorites that you already have. They offer a variety of beers, ciders, sours, seltzers, and malt beverages.
So Phil put the process very simply, and it might be even easier than he just described. It's an awesome experience, and he put it perfectly that you just go up there and just find your new favorite beer. You can sample or get as much as you want, but while you're there, not just the wall of alcohol that you can consume. They have tons of events, and a lot of them are rotating. So Wednesday, September 11th, is the weekly Wednesday Geeks Who Drink Trivia starting at 7:30. Thursday, the 12th, 7:30 or 7 o'clock, is the weekly karaoke. Then Thursday night, like we just mentioned, the Bills are playing again, and the best watch party in town is at Tap That Tap Room starting at 8:15. The sound is on, so you can listen to the boys playing football. Watch for the player of the game. You wear their jersey, you get a free gift. This last week was Josh Allen. So it's probably not going to be Josh Allen this Thursday. If you don't have a Josh Allen jersey, get somebody else. Stay tuned. They post it on their social media sites, so keep an eye out. If you have that player's jersey, wear it. You get a free gift. And halftime, if you want a free jersey, there is a free jersey giveaway at halftime every single Bills game. So make sure you're heading out to the best place to watch with a bunch of other Bills fans at Tap That Tap Room. So if there's any other events you want to check out, look for their Facebook page, or for all their other post events, check out all their social media sites. And to find out what's on tap and what's on deck, check out tapthattaproom.com. Let's move forward. Phil, we already teased it, but we got massive news this last week. Kyle Buchanan, the irreplaceable forward on this team that we've been talking about nonstop this offseason, hoping he's back because he's a guy that you just simply can't replace because of all the stuff he does that does not appear on the box score. He is back for another year.
The water bug himself back to continue pushing for the title. Third straight. Looking like it is an opportunity. They have the chance, and now with him back, I think that is just a better chance that they have. I know we like Christian Watson. He could eventually slip into that spot or somebody else. But again, Buchanan, no matter what his age, he showed absolutely no decline last year. He still put up a lot of decent points. And like you said, the loose balls, the little things he does, the intangibles, the hustle on and off every single play, the, getting in the way of somebody in the the Bandits offensive zone, getting like if there's a turnover and he's just staying out there fighting for it, gives your team that opportunity to get the defense on there. So he kills transition opportunities for opposing teams. He does it all. His leadership is invaluable, and he's just an absolutely incredible player. And again, he didn't really show any signs of decline last year. Really happy to have him back, and I think that gives them an even bigger chance this year than they would have without him.
Yeah, he's just one of those players that you simply can't replace in the lineup. It's not all about the points that he gets. He's not a guy that needs the ball on his stick. He's the guy that's going to go into the corners. He's the last guy off the field on every single switch from offense to defense, trying to get the ball back, just killing more time so the rest of his offense can get off and the defense can get on, and then he hustles to the bench. He's just one of those players that is always constantly moving. Like you said, in his... he's on the tail end of his career. There's no doubt about it, but he has not lost a step. He's out there on every faceoff. He's out there getting the loose balls. He's out there setting the picks. He's doing the dirty work, and he's not that big of a guy. So to be able to convince him to come back and see a bunch of the players react on Instagram, it sounded like there was a legit possibility that he was going to hang it up. So for him to be able to come back, and because I know he's got young kids and I know he's got a family, so him to be able to decide, hey, yes, it's still time. I still can go out there. And I don't think it was ever about can he still do it. It's does him and his family decide that this is still the right time and the right move to continue to play. So to be able to make the decision, it's definitely a big time bonus for the Buffalo Bandits to be able to get him back, because we've been saying it for 3.5 years since we've been doing this show. Kyle Buchanan simply cannot be replaced in this Buffalo Bandits lineup because there's just simply nobody on the roster and nobody out there currently that you can get and replace him with. They'll get somebody that can do some of the things he does, but there's not a player out there that can do everything that he does. Is there a player in this upcoming draft that we're going to be talking about in a bit that Mike has some characteristics that emulate a Kyle Buchanan? 100%, but it might take a while for him to develop. So to get a guy back like Kyle Buchanan, it's one of the bigger offseason moves that they could have done, and I absolutely fantastic seeing him back in the black and orange.
Yeah, I think even calling out one play that comes to mind, I think it was the Georgia playoff game. I think it was the game-tying goal where he followed up a rebound that it was in midair. No one was around him, and he was able to dunk it past when it looked like Dobson had the Bandits number and just was not going to allow them to score the rest of the entire game. And he was able to just dunk that home and give them some momentum. And it's that kind of effort where he's just sprinting to the net. No defender around him, no other offensive players. Like, no one was doing what he was doing. And because of the position he was in, he was able to grab a rebound that was in the air and dunk it home. And it was such a massive goal that eventually led to them winning and eventually led to them winning the championship. But it's those kind of plays that, yes, that showed up on the score sheet, but the hustle and the effort and the IQ he had to keep that play going and just know where to be at the right time, that kind of stuff is just, you can't coach it, you can't teach it. He just is always in the right spot, right time, and knows what to do.
Yeah, so that's, in my opinion, the biggest offseason move they could have made, at least to date, because I think getting
him and Dawson,
getting him back, getting Priolo under 3 years, or back for 3 years was a big one. But at this point in free agency, I think he was one of the last big left guys out there from last year to be able to return. There's still the Bryce Sweetings, there's still the Adam Bomberries, who they're very solid, important back end players. But getting a guy like Kyle Buchanan back, it's fantastic. So around the other league, or not other league, around the league in general, Keegan Ball is back with Vancouver. San Diego and Ottawa made a deal. Jacob Dunbar goes from San Diego to Ottawa for Zach Deacon. I think it's a forward defense move, and you're wondering, man, they shipped out a young guy in San Diego. Why does that make sense? Well, all they did was sign 2-year deals with Ben McIntosh and Rob Hellier. They are absolutely going for it, and yes, we've seen it in the past with Dane Dobie. We've seen it in the past with Curtis Dixon. But to pair a Rob Hellier and a Ben McIntosh with the likes of, you still got Westberg out there. You just signed Benny. That offensive unit is going to be a juggernaut. Trey LeClair's still sitting out there on the offensive unit as well. if Austin Stotts is allowed to play next year, he's already suspended 7 games, but if he's back, that offense is going to be very, very dangerous. And then Adam Levy already reported, it hasn't been officialized yet, but Austin Shanks, he goes from Halifax to Saskatchewan. So, Randy Stotts is the only forward out there remaining from that Halifax unit. Benny jumped ship. Sounds like Austin Stotts jumped ship. Will Randy be the next one from Halifax? The Halifax Thunderbirds are taking massive blows this offseason.
Yeah, I think this is a lot more movement than we expected, and I think this is some of that free agency stuff we wanted to keep an eye on for checking. Right now, yep. I'd say, just off the top of my head, we're closer to 50-50 than I expected, with players jumping ship more than I expected to see, and San Diego is just absolutely loading up. That is going to be a scary team that was already a scary team that just couldn't seem to get the job done and finish it, but they are adding some big-time players to that team, and it's going to be interesting playing them again. They are once again looking like a very big contender, but can they do it in playoffs? They have yet to do so.
Yeah, so again, we're recording on Sunday night for those that skipped around, like we said in the time breakdowns. We're recording Sunday night, so there likely going to be signings on Monday and Tuesday that we will not be able to cover until the next show. So that is why it's completely my fault. Going on vacation, that's why we're recording early. So if there are signings Monday and Tuesday, we will cover that on the next show. We did get a little bit more news from Adam Levy that broke it. Teddy Jenner and Pat Gregoire are going to be the ones that are in charge of talking on the NLL Draft that will be streamed next Sunday, the 15th. Love it. Those guys are some of the best in the business, if not the top tier of the game. And I can't wait to be able to kick back Sunday, because there is no Bills game, to be able to watch this. It sounds like it's going to be streamed on their YouTube site, so I'm very interested. We're going to start diving into the names here of what we want the Bandits to do with their draft picks, but I absolutely can't. I'm so excited. I don't know why this took so long for them to decide, hey, we should go back to streaming this, because, again, we can do it. Why couldn't they for years? But I will hats off. This is the perfect dynamic duo to be broadcasting in NLL Draft.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the fact that they're streaming alone is fantastic. But again, the bigger thing to me is to have those two announcing the picks, and hopefully they will provide everybody. Again, these fans that are going to watch this want to know about these players. There's not a ton of information out there about these guys. They don't understand how they fit into their team, what this kind of player is, what they did. Like, all that information is great to have actual hosts that can explain that kind of stuff to a team that you just drafted this guy. Okay, that's great. What does he mean? What can he bring? Where can he slot into my team? Can I be excited that he's going to make it? Is he going to be a bubble guy? Like, who is this player that we just drafted? And it's great to have hosts that can actually explain all that and break it down. I think it just adds an element to the draft that is kind of missing for a professional league that they are bringing back this year. And I think it just brings the fans closer to their team, closer to the draft, and closer to the league.
So we'll start going over the draft picks and kind of who's in the draft and what we're expecting and what we want them to do. But a huge thanks to both, swarmingup.com. Check them out. This is where we got the official numbers of what the Bandits are going to be doing. And then On the Clock on X. They're on the clock Lax on X. Go follow them. They're massive help. We got all the draft picks. We know the rounds, but to be able to get the exact draft picks, what it is because of the compensatory picks, swarmingup.com does it the best. And then to figure out what players are going to be in this draft is On the Clock Lax on X. Huge, also, massive shout out to both of them.
ontheclocklax.com is their website.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, both of those sites, absolutely fantastic. So if you're looking for the draft picks, Buffalo obviously has 3 first-round picks. We've been talking about that nonstop. They got the 7th overall pick, former Ottawa from the Noseworthy deal. They got the 8th overall pick from Rochester. Last year, Buffalo traded their 15th overall pick. Last year, hey, it turned out to be a pretty good draft pick because this one's 8 this year. And then they got their own, which is the 15th pick this year because Panther City already traded their pick. Any of the Panther City picks that they had still in their system, they just go away. They're vacated. But any picks that they traded to other teams, those ones are still staying intact. So that is why Buffalo has 15th and not moving up to 14th, because I think it was Georgia that owns Panther City's pick. They're not just going to forfeit that because they already made a trade and they already acquired it. But any other picks, so say Panther City own their own third-round pick, that just dissolves, that goes away. Buffalo has the 19th overall pick, the Vancouver second-round pick from the McCulley trade. They have the 38th overall pick, third rounder from the old New York, now Ottawa, from the Paul Dawson deal. They get the 57th overall pick, which is in the fourth round. That's their own pick. They have the 65th overall pick, which is in the fifth round. That's from Rochester, from the Jordan Storos deal a couple off seasons ago. They got the 72 overall pick, which is in the fifth round. That's their own. They got the 85th overall pick, which is in the sixth round, former Toronto's pick from the Alex Q deal. And then they got the 86th overall pick, the final pick in the draft, which is their own. So they got 10 picks coming up, Phil, spattered all around from the 7th overall pick to the very last pick. What do we want to see them do with these picks? Trade them, move up, players in the draft? There's a lot of options for this team to do.
Yeah, from rounds 3 through 6, trade them all, either to future drafts or just bundle every single one of them for some kind of prospect who's already in the league. Just get rid of them. Just you can just forfeit or say pass on maybe the third you can keep, but 4, 5, 5, and 6, 6. Bundle them all and get one player in the third or something. I don't know.
What if I were to tell you, though, that the aforementioned Kyle Buchanan was a 6th-round pick?
That's fair. Makes it slightly more enticing. But I think we went over, I don't know if we did it with the NLL. I know we did it a little bit with the Sabres as well. I don't think we've done it with the NLL of just what round all these players really come from, where they're hitting, like how many, second, third, fourth round players are actually on the Bandits right now or later, other than Buchanan. I know we did it with the Sabres in their draft, and there really wasn't much past the fourth round for the Sabres, I think it was. Everything after that was Olofsson.
Funny you asked here, Phil. Do you have a pen and paper in front of you?
I got a pencil and paper. I don't know what I did with my
that
pen.
Works. Write the numbers 1 through 6, and then do a little tally, because I'm going to read off these, and then we'll have a grand total here.
Wait.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay. Zach Belter was a first-round draft pick.
Okay.
Adam Bomberry was a second-round draft pick. Kyle Buchanan was a 6th-round draft pick.
Oof.
Josh Byrne, Chris Cloutier, both first-round draft picks. Evan C. was a second-round draft pick. Paul Dawson was a first. Then we got 4 that were in the second round, which were Connor Farrell, Chase Frazier, Corey Highfield, and Sam LaRue. We got Ian McKay, who was a first-round draft pick. We got Justin Martin, who was a second. Tahoka was a first. Steve Orleman and Steve Priola were both second-round draft picks. We got Kevin Pulera, who was a fourth-rounder, along with Brandon Robinson, both fourth-rounders. We have Dylan Robinson and Justin Robinson, who were both first-rounders. Jake Rosa was a third. Clay Scanlon was a second. Then we got Dane Smith and Matt Vince were firsts. Christian Watts was a fifth. Nick Weiss was a second. Cam Weyers was a first. Bryce Sweeting was a fourth. We have Frank Brown, who was a third. And I believe, because I couldn't find any information on it, I believe Matt Spanger was undrafted. And that concludes all of the players either currently or still need deals who were on the Bandits last year.
All right. We have 11 first-round picks, 11 second-round picks, 2/3, 3/4, 1/5, 1/6, 1 undrafted. So
there you go. The majority
rounds
are the
3
first and
through
second, like
6. Yeah, round 3 through 6, and then the 1 undrafted account for 8 total players, and the first round and second round are 22.
So there you go. Phil is pretty much on track, anywhere from 3rd to 6th. Package and move.
Package and move. Especially when you got 3 firsts and a pretty high second. You just package 3 through 6 and move on from those.
Yeah, so again, we are recording late Sunday. That
My
does
goodness.
not mean by the time we talk to you guys again, the draft will already be completed. So there is a possibility that Monday or Tuesday when we normally record, that there is a trade already lined up. But there's a lot of time between when we're recording now until the draft and when we're talking next. It's 9 days, 7 days, something like that. So there could be a lot of things that transpire from now until our next show. But we did jot down a few names that we're very interested in. I have 3 forwards highlighted and a defenseman highlighted. And I think they're all projected to be within the first two to 3 rounds. But, I mean, ideally for me, and it still goes back to what I would like them to do is still go get a Tim Edwards. So you free up that spot that Connor Farrell, again, no smack talking Connor Farrell whatsoever. He's very good at what he does. I just would like them to use assets to go get a guy who can do more than just face-offs. I would like somebody to either play out the front door, play in the transition game, or play defense. And I think Tim Edwards is the perfect pick for that. Whether that means you have to use a first and a second to go get him, I think he would add a ton of value to this team. I think I've brought Phil on board with this just based on what our private chats and on this show. I think Tim Edwards is the number one option right now for a guy I would like to see the Buffalo Bandits use some draft picks to acquire.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. I've said it pretty much the entire offseason that I think if there's one singular position that a championship team like this could use to take them to the next level, I do think it's a face-off guy who's not face-off only and can also play defense. I mean, we saw the defense got a little bit banged up last year, and if they had somebody who could play both, that is a big addition to the team. And in general, it's just great to have a guy who can do more than just face-offs. Farrell was very good at what he did, and it was face-offs only, which is just not something we prefer in that kind of position. It's nothing, again, like you said, no shot at him. He was very, very good to come in to the NLL for the first time ever, really for him, step into a championship team and fit right in. He did a great job. They won a championship with him on the roster, so clearly he was valuable. But moving forward, I mean, I think it says a decent amount to me personally that he still has not signed again with the Bandits, and free agency has been open twice now and is still open. Like you said, things could happen next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way up until the draft to see what happens. But so far, he's not been re-signed by the Bandits. I think that says something about what they are also maybe looking for in a face-off guy. Farrell?
He's still under contract, though.
Oh, okay. He signed a 2-year?
Yeah, he signed a 2-year deal last year.
Never mind them. Ignore everything I just said. But I don't know. I still would like them to, like you said, I think if there's one position that could take a team that has had a 4 straight championship run, they've been to the finals 4 straight times, if they could find a way to improve with one single player, I do think it would be a face-off player that can do more than just face-offs.
Yeah, and a good transition away from that, if they do decide not to pursue, and maybe they have been trying in Colorado, it's just with getting Malcolm and Ryan Lee on his way back, and hopefully the defense can turn around. Maybe they're not interested in moving a guy like Tim Edwards. Maybe Tim Edwards is not interested in coming back to the East Coast. Who really knows what goes on behind the aspects there. But maybe Buffalo has made phone calls on it, and things are not working out. So good transition into the players that are going to be in this draft is a guy like Reese Barnes. And I in my opinion, he's the top player on my draft board. Not saying you take him 7th, but he is the one that I'm most interested in. He's a right defenseman. He's out in Edmonton, so that throws a little bit of wrench into it, but that does not stop Buffalo from drafting West Coast guys in the past. He's played in the RMJLL. He did it all. He was one of the top defenders as well as taking draws, and he was 70% at the dot. He's projected to go in one of the first 2 rounds. There's not very many players out there that are known to take face-offs as well. So to me, that is one of the top guys on my board that I would be desperately interested in if you're using one of those top picks. Are you willing to risk him sliding all the way to 15 if he's projected to be a first-round draft pick, or do you just decide, hey, we're taking him with the 7 or 8? Or maybe you take the 8th overall pick, slide back a bit for somebody that's going for one of these top forwards. But again, as we continue to talk some of these players, once again, I just want to give them a shout out because they did fantastic work. On the Clock Lax on X and ontheclocklax.com. Check them out because their tools for this are unbelievable.
We would not have any of this information without them. Yeah, he would definitely be the number one. I mean, we just explained why. We've been talking about it literally the entire offseason that we want Tim Edwards. He is your draft pick equivalent of a Tim Edwards. Yes. He not only is one of the best defenders out there, he can also do faceoffs, and he can also provide in transition as well. He has a little bit of offensive ability as well. So literally does it all, and that's the kind of player, again, yes, he would be a rookie coming in, so it's a little bit different than Tim Edwards, who can possibly step into a championship caliber team and provide that spark and that kind of settled veteran leadership. But if you get a guy like this, it seems like he could still step in and just play immediately and eat up a lot of minutes and just be that all-around future player that you can build around and have one of those top face-off guys who also plays defense and have him for years and years to come. So I don't know. I mean, for me, with the lack of holes the Bandits truly have on the roster, another thing we've talked about nonstop, I don't mind reaching for a player like this. Like, it doesn't bother me if they use the 7th overall and he's projected to go 19th. Like, that's fine. The team just does not have room for that many players. And if they think he's a player that can come in, make their roster, and be an impact on this team immediately, I have no problem with them going out of their way to reach possibly for a player like that and just go and get him. Because a lot of these other guys, you're either going to, see if you can hold on to them in a practice squad, or they're just going to walk because you have no room for them on your roster. So if they don't end up trading any of these picks and we're just going off the fact that they're going to use them all, and these are the guys we want, he's one of the ones that I think can actually join the starting roster and be there for the whole year and make an impact on this team.
Yeah, as we continue, I think you hit the nail on the head there perfectly, that Buffalo is in a position where, yes, they have 4 picks in the top 20, but they're in a position where they don't have a ton of holes. And if they can fill a hole with the 7th overall pick, one of the few holes they have, and even if that means you're overdrafting, and you can get a guy who can develop into one of the top face-off men in the league, or compete with one of the top face-off men in the league, because you're never going to get a Jake Withers, you're never going to get a Trevor Baptiste, you're never going to get a TD Erlin. They're just so rare. So you're going to likely have to get them through the draft. And if that means drafting a guy at 7 who is on the mocks at going 17th, 18th, 19th, or even slightly earlier than that, it might be worth it if, like you said, he slides right into a role that can improve there. So with Buffalo, yes, you're looking to get younger players who can step up into roles as the older players age out, but because of how loaded this team is, you don't have a ton of those slots open that you can afford to develop those players. So maybe draft a player that might not be fully ready to go and replace those guys, but can step into a role and be an improvement over what you already have.
Exactly.
But Phil, I do see a couple bold names here. Are these 2 other players that are currently on your list, or did I somehow bold these?
No, I bolded all the ones that I had also had lists, and then I
Perfect.
wrote the ones that I had that you didn't off to the side here.
Yeah, I mean, Reese Barnes is really the only defender I want. I can throw out a couple more names. Trent DeSicchio, I butchered his last name. I fully apologize. Jackson Raposo and Jacob Power are the other 3 names that kind of stood out to me. But the number one that I really wanted to talk about was Reese Barnes. The other guys, I just want you to know their names just in case they do pop up as a Buffalo Bandits draft pick.
Yeah, a lot of the guys in this draft that were on the I don't know why I'm dying right now. That were on the website, a lot of them were big, a lot of them had high IQ, a lot of them were great defenders, but at the same time, a lot of them were also big transition threats.
Yep.
And that was
yep.
Right, and that's the other huge area that I think the Bandits can really improve on in one pick is a big defender who can also play really good transition. And a lot of the names, you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names on your list. I added another 5 on my list that were together combined. I mean, a lot of these players have transition ability built into their profile, and I think that's something the Bandits should absolutely go out and get. And it seems like the defensive side of the draft is very loaded with players that the Bandits would absolutely love to add. So I don't think they have to reach. I think they can get, I mean, I don't know what order they would want these guys in or anything, but a lot of them had the ability to get points and show the ability to be really fast, really good in transition, really solid defenders. Like the whole package was a lot of these defenders. So it seems like a pretty decently deep defender class. So I think other than Reese Barnes, if they go out and get pretty much a lot of the guys that were mentioned on that website, I think they're going to be really happy with them. But I think getting a guy that can absolutely score and has that transition ability is still something the Bandits are missing a little bit of with what they currently have on the team.
Yeah, we can flip forward to the forwards now. I got three guys really highlighted. The one that I really picked, he's not the top pick that I would, Lucas Nielsen. And a big reason that I picked him is he can go back to college. So he's a guy that you can use a draft pick on. He's not a guy that will take up a roster spot. And he's a guy that can go back and cook back in college. So that was one of the ones. Cam Choney, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, right forward, Delaware and Owen Sound, plays in the MSL. He's worked out the back end, but he fits out the front door the best, gives 100% each shift and helps free up teammates. This was a guy that I kind of stood out to me because it sounded a lot like a guy just re-signed with Buffalo. So if you're looking for a guy where Kyle Buchanan definitely sounded like he was 50-50, maybe this could be his final year. Maybe this Cam guy could be a guy that fills in. And then Jackson Webster, left forward, Canisius and Owen Sound, more local guy playing at Canisius, first year in the MSL, 11 goals in 11 games. Played out the back door to help the defense with the Beaches and can kind of play both ends. So he's another guy that is a natural forward, but can also play on the back end, kind of like the Brandon Robinson did earlier in this year. So those were the three guys in the forward end that really stood out to me, along with a guy like Zach Thompson, a Jonathan Peshko, Kalen Harris. Those are other names that kind of stood out to me. But those top three guys for the forward group are the guys that kind of stood out with the first few picks that they have.
One of the defenders that stood out to me that we didn't mention was Matt Accioni, who is Cam's brother. So if they can go out and get both of them in this draft, we love having the families all together on one team, like the Robinsons. So yeah, go out and get both of them. Sure, they work great together. Get one, get both, and honestly, they both sound great. So it's not like you're reaching to get one, but the other one also. They seem like they're both real big, like heart and soul, give 100% all the time kind of players. So go out and get both, and that'd be a good time. But the other one that you didn't mention that I liked a lot as a Brandon Robinson in the making was Ethan Emlott, which is an interesting last name. Kind of like it, but he's 6'6", 180. He's a big forward, by far the biggest forward in the draft. But I think he's that kind of guy who's going to sit in front of the net, clog up the middle, set those picks. He's a left forward, so he's pretty much your Brandon Robinson of the future. Brandon Robinson's ran into a lot of injury issues. I do love Brandon Robinson in this lineup. When he's in the lineup and he's healthy, he's fantastic, but he has run into a few injuries throughout his career, even with the Bandits. So getting a guy like this to possibly develop on your practice squad and take over at some point, being the younger version of a Brandon Robinson, or again, if Brandon Robinson gets injured, he's on your practice squad, you have somebody to step into that position. And he also is very good on offense. He's got a very hard shot. He have the ability to score really well as well, but he's also just going to be that guy who's just in the way, clogging up the lanes, making it really difficult on defenses to get their hands out to a guy like Byrne or Cloutier and just be that role. If you want one kind of in the making, I think he's another one. And then the only other forward I had, which was an interesting one who could slide a bit. They aren't sure if he wants to go back to the NLL. He hasn't played in indoor lacrosse at all since 2021, and that's Braden Maya. But the big thing with him for me is that he's playing for Carolina in the PLL right now. And so being a player that's playing with Bandits forwards right now as a forward on their PLL team, maybe they have some inside information on him in general, about talking to him. Does he want to come back to the NLL? And just in general, he might have chemistry with these players already, playing summer ball with them. So I think that could be an interesting fit for a guy they said likely would be a first-round pick if he doesn't slide, because they're really not sure. His talent is first round, but again, he hasn't played in indoor in a really long time, so he's someone who could slide down the draft a little bit to maybe a section where the Bandits could take him as a value and have a player that's already played with some of your forwards.
Yeah, so the last position here is obviously goalie, and there's a lot of fans out there that, either listen to this or just look at the roster and just go, hey, when Matt Vince decides to hang it up, because we're officially saying he's coming back this year, they don't, what do they have behind him? Who's going to be the guy that steps up into Matt Vince's role? And I said that there might be a guy on this roster. Maybe it's Steve Orleman. Maybe it's Evan C. Like, they really like Evan C. He was the first goalie off the board last year, I believe. He's a big, big boy, and I think he's only going to be 20 years old. He's developing very well in summer ball. So maybe they already have somebody on the roster that they really, really like, and maybe that's another reason why Devlin Shanahan didn't come back this year and they chose to release him. So there are a lot of quality goalies in this draft if Buffalo does want to take another shot on one. But again, you already have 3 goalies under contract. Can you afford to have another season where you have 4 goalies under the 25 players that you have? That's a lot of goalies taking up a lot of valuable roster spots on a team that's already super deep. Do you have room for a 4th goalie? So that's another reason why I'm like, hey, don't just draft players to draft them. If you know that, hey, this player has no shot at making the team, try to move that asset down the road. And yes, I know there are guys out there like the Christian Watts who came in last year, made a noise, made a spot, but eventually he lost the spot for a healthy Buffalo Bandits team. So if you want to draft a guy later in the rounds, maybe they can develop. It's possible. Maybe get a look at them. Maybe they go into play in the other winter league that the box league has. But I'd rather them move some picks around and try to get future assets or a now player than just draft players to draft them and use all 10 picks, because we are well aware, as we've been talking all offseason, there are not 10 spots on this team. So I really do believe that Steve Dietrich is going to be very, very active in the next week leading up to the draft, and especially at draft time.
Yeah, I do actually. This is a position, and specifically the first goalie that looks like he might come off the board. There's a obvious reason to go after him. But more importantly, I think the Bandits do need, and again, this one makes sense, which we'll get to in a second, but I do think they need to load up on goalie prospects as much as they can to take as many shots as they can at having the future goalie that this team needs. I mean, how many times did we go over this offseason with the bottom teams in the league? They do not have strong goaltending, and teams that are fantastic have the best goaltending in the entire league. It is such a majorly important position in this league that if you do not have a top goalie, even if the rest of your team is fantastic, you're likely going to falter at some point. And at the same time, your team might not be fantastic, but your goalie can rise above that team. And Dobson is a huge example. Georgia is a up-and-coming team. They're pretty good, but they really, no offense, had no business being in the game against the Bandits in the playoffs. But they were, because Dobson played absolutely out of his mind. And if you have goalies like that, they can just make such a big difference to a team. And I think the Bandits need to... I mean, look at Vince. I mean, he's just a prime example. Yes, he's one of the best ever, but again, he's one of the best ever. They've been to 4 straight finals with a goalie like this. They've won 2 straight with a goalie like this. I think it's just such an important position that Nate Whittem is the one I'm talking about. The big thing with him, other than possibly being the first goalie off the board, is he has 2 more years of juniors eligibility allowed. So you can draft him this year, even use an earlier pick on him, and then just go let him cook for 2 years. You don't have to worry about him making the team. You don't have to worry about having a spot for him. He's just off in juniors 2 more years, developing while he's part of your system, and you're good. Like, he just doesn't have to be a part of the team. Yet at the same time, in 2 years, who knows what Vince is doing? Who knows what the team looks like? Who knows what the goalies are? Maybe at that point he can step in and possibly make some noise, or maybe he develops into the goalie of the future that you just don't know yet. But I think the Bandits should be taking shots on goalies, but specifically, like you mentioned, ones that have juniors eligibility still allowed. If you're going to draft one that has to make the team, to me, that's pretty much useless, because I don't think you're going to have more than 3 goalies on this team. You're definitely not going to have 4 again. And if you do, that's just, I don't agree with that. But I do like the first one because of that eligibility to go back and does not have to be part of this team until a few more years down the road.
So that pretty much wraps up our draft coverage. I know it's not super in-depth, but we're not a super in-depth podcast when it comes to, guys coming in, and we leave
We're
that
trying.
to guys like the Teddy Jenners and the Pat Gregoires who do that, and that's why it's so exciting to see them streaming the draft, and you're going to learn so much more about these prospects in the next wave of players coming into the NLL. So next time we'll be talking, there'll be a whole group of draft picks coming into the Buffalo Bandits organization, and can't wait to see some new faces and some new players even coming into the league. So, Phil, that pretty much wraps up this episode before we shut it down for another 9 days now. So go Bills. We got a game Thursday, but is there anything else you want to add to this episode before we shut it down?
Yeah, go Bills. Congrats on the win. It was a big one to get, and we'll see if there's any Bandits trades coming up as well. I think it's going to be a very interesting time for the Bandits. They should, in theory, be pretty active with the amount of picks they have and the lack of holes on their team. So could be a very interesting lead up to the draft and draft itself. So very excited time for the Bandits.
Yeah, so keep your phones by you. Keep X ready to refresh all the time, because the week leading up, and especially the draft time,
things could
which
drop
I don't
at
think
any
we
time.
have official time yet, is going to be very, very busy for the Buffalo Bandits and Steve Dietrich and the whole organization. So on our next show, we will review those draft picks that went down. We'll talk about the Bills versus Dolphins, even though it'll be a little bit older. We'll maybe dive into some Sabres prospect games, because those are coming up next weekend. Well, this coming up weekend, I should say, because it is Wednesday. And then we'll talk about any other NLL free agency news, if Buffalo Bandits make any splash plays or if any other teams make some splashes. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Go. You can visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Check out our store on our link tree on our socials, or at the top of the shop tab at the top of the website. You can follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.